Geopolitics and Empire is joined by K.M. Patten, a researcher, activist, and writer who lives in the greater LA area. While spending time in California's prison system, he caught the activist bug. Suddenly, eager to change a world he didn't always care for, he decided to join up with a number of local activist groups, which culminated with the Occupy movement and the camps that sprung up in America a few years ago. A memoir of that year-long experience is near completion, and he spends his days reading, writing, taking care of his son, and of course, battling the forces of darkness, as are all of us. Welcome to Geopolitics and Empire, Kevin.
Well, thank you so much, Reggie. I appreciate it. There's one correction that's very important, as I am no longer in California. I am a California refugee. I have lived over in Arizona now for a little more than a year, and we had to escape the hellhole that is California. I could rant about California for a little while, but I'll spare your audience unless you have some questions about it.
Yeah, maybe that'll come up. This is a running trend. I think I've had some guests as well who have fled. I think of that great film I love with Kurt Russell. First it was Escape from New York, and then it was Escape from LA.
I love those movies. Great movies.
Yeah, those are absolutely fantastic. Maybe they were telegraphing to us back then what was going to happen in the future. But I wanted to talk about, I got it right here, Staying On During the Great Reset. That's one of your books from Stairway Press. You've got a few others we can talk about at a future time, but you mentioned how the reset is disappearing logic itself, where inconsistency has become a virtue. And so I've been talking a lot about the Great Reset, and I wanted to get maybe your thought on what's going on with Cobra Commander Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset, and all of this.
I think a lot of people probably first heard of Klaus Schwab here. In fact, back during the Occupy days, his Davos meetings was being held for since 1971. I think is when he held it. First started it, and now in Occupy, I think he was bringing together a lot of these bankers to talk about what they were going to do. And there is an article up right for the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, in which he says he's been pushing this line for a while. We need to find a way to come out of this crisis better, stronger, more resilient. This is a line that Schwab has been pushing for a very long time. And but he's really come to the forefront with COVID when he's written this book, COVID-19, The Great Reset. And this is his grand plan, and he's going to make sure that it sees fruition. I don't see the Great Reset as an agenda or a single policy, and it's certainly not any kind of conspiracy. It's a vision held by Schwab and those of his ilk and people who attend his summits. And in a word, I think it really is dystopia. It's a technocratic, totalitarian world state. And he says pretty clearly inside of his book, he hates nationalism. He hates sovereign communities. He wants a world in which the elite rule the entire world. And he's pretty clear about this. So, what can we do about it? That's the real question. I mean, we can go on about it, but I think it's very important that people are aware of what he's doing. And thankfully, these guys don't hide what they're doing anymore. They just come right out with it. And to our benefit, I guess, all you got to do is pick up the book. But Schwab at least has one good thing going for him, is that people are very easily distracted. I mean, if you just look around your city, you'll see how many people just bury their faces in the phone. I see this all the time. And so he's got that. He wants to make one of the most important points is he wants to move our world into a contactless society. Everything is going to become everything, e-commerce, telemedicine, e-exercise, working from home. He's going to try to isolate people as much as possible. And he's halfway there, it seems like. So one thing we could do is get out of our houses, get off the phones, meet people. It's important.
A message from our sponsors. It seems we may be headed for the 1930s all over again. Financial collapse, tyranny, and world war. I've already secured multiple passports, offshore accounts, safe havens, and escaped to the sunnier shores of Mexico. My friend Mikkel Thorup of the Expat Money Show is hosting the Expat Money Summit with 30-plus experts that'll help you reclaim freedom in this fourth turning by moving your life and wealth offshore. Protect yourself and secure a new life abroad. Register now for free at expatmoneysummit.com, or don't, and enjoy surviving on insect protein while stuck in the metaverse. Since 2020, Ron Unz of Unz.com has argued the COVID outbreak was due to a U.S. biowarfare attack against China and Iran. Jeffrey Sachs, the Russian Ministry of Defense, and others are now making similar suggestions. Weeks before COVID appeared in Wuhan, a top U.S. biowarfare official ran the Crimson Contagion exercise on how to protect America against infection if a dangerous virus suddenly appeared in China. After COVID appeared in Wuhan, it jumped to Iran, infecting Iranian leadership only weeks after America had assassinated Iran's military commander. Iran publicly accused America of an illegal biowarfare attack and filed a complaint with the UN. Ron Unz has produced a free ebook and is available for interviews to further discuss this issue. And don't forget to fund Geopolitics and Empire. You can leave a donation, except on Patreon or PayPal, which have banned us, book a consultation, or become a member. I mean, I love how you describe this concisely. And I also like to spend time on diagnosing the disease, the problem, and then looking towards solutions. So I want to make sure we have a clear understanding of our adversary, of the problem, and then let's look at solutions. But to really grasp, to get a profound understanding of the nature of what we're dealing with, because it's really bad, it's really sinister. And you mentioned it, this globalized state. You talked about, that's how the word you use in your book. I've been worrying about this for decades. I know you describe yourself as a secular libertarian in the book. I'm actually a Christian conservative, but we often meet in many regards in terms of our understanding of what's going on. And you write in your book as well, Schwab's desired society is one in which you, the average citizen, receives routine notifications on your smartphone, all of them sent by some sort of global pandemic command center. And I think to add on to what you were saying, this contactless system, they want a global vaccine passport system. And they basically want to put us on this infrastructure that's digital that they control. And then we can't do, they control everything, and then we're completely screwed. We have no freedom, no sovereignty, no liberty, no agency. And we're just seeing like the last 2 days, Alex Jones gets fined $1 billion basically for speech. Now the free speech costs $1 billion, as what's his name, Darren Beatty from Revolver News just said. Kanye West got his JP Morgan bank account has just canceled him. And I read just before we connected, Cat's Turd, which is the popular account on Twitter, this anonymous popular account on Twitter, they just had their Bank of America, their bank account canceled. And this is absolutely insane. And this is the thing that freaks me out the most, this digital, I like to call it algorithm ghetto social credit system. And it seems to keep it advancing. You know, before we get to further solutions, how do you sort of see this and its advance?
Yeah, I see it as a technocratic grid. That's why they kind of want to push everybody into cities. They want to smartify everything. They want you on your phones for sure. And now we have Janet Yellen today talking about, hey, a digital currency might be a good idea. That might be something that we could work toward. So easily controlled, people in one little spot, everybody together, but kind of alone inside their little hub, right in the big cities. That's the way I see it advancing. With as regard to free speech, you're right. Alex Jones got fined $1 billion. I mean, people are making the accusation that Jones had sicked his people out on these families. There's no evidence of that at all whatsoever. All he said was that this was a false flag event. These are crisis actors, and people took from that what they would. But he did not tell people to go out there and insult grieving parents at their children's graves. It is a free speech issue. I've also heard people say, well, hey, how about the Covington kids or Kyle Rittenhouse, who also sued CNN and MSNBC for calling them murderers, or the second one a murderer, and the Covington kids racist for insulting an indigenous man. Well, in fact, actually, I did not believe in those lawsuits either. I did not believe that Rittenhouse or the Covington kids had a grounds for a lawsuit. I just don't, because I like to think of myself as a free speech absolutist. And that's one thing that they're trying to do, is trying to shut down. I mean, the role of big tech in all this, it can't be understated. They have a huge role. I mean, Zuckerberg attends these summits all the time. And we now know that the White House has had frequent contact with Mark Zuckerberg, and they specifically with vaccine misinformation or lockdown criticism. They will shut down their critics, and that's what they're doing. And I think they're going to continue on that. Luckily, I mean, we have shows like yours. We have independent media. I think that's the way we're moving. I mean, people talk about, well, we need to regulate big tech. We need to kind of nationalize big tech. And I don't agree with that either. I think that one way we can see these guys dissolve is by coming up with alternative media. And it is working. That is working. We can find other platforms. Facebook and Twitter were not going to last forever. They've only been around for 10 or 15 years. So we need to find other platforms, small publishers, websites, old pamphleteering, leafleting. I mean, going out there and actually, they're right to say that we don't have a right to their platforms. We don't. But I think they're going to continue, as long as we're on there, they're going to continue to kick us off. Why bother?
Yeah, I'd agree with you in terms of the nationalization aspect. I think we should keep them separate, the private, because that what we have now is fascism in a sense, where we've got the government and these corporations working together. May of these corporations came from the Pentagon and DARPA, from the government.
Yes.
So maybe they've never even left them. Maybe they are pseudo private entities. And I think antitrust, is a free market answer to break up some of these. They've gotten, I don't like a concentration of power in either direction, whether it's communism or you have a state monopoly or, this monopoly capitalism. We have to keep that balance somewhere in the middle to maintain freedom. But, you touched on what I was going to ask you about this alternative media space. I know you sort of work in the Stairway Publishing is sort of, I'd call alternative publisher or independent sort of publishing company. But also my worry is we are starting to see these sprout up. Rumble, for all these alternative video platforms. Odyssey just added a Patreon sort of function to it, so we don't need Patreon anymore. But my worry is, what if these alt companies start getting their bank accounts canceled and then they can't function? That's sort of my worst case scenario. Any further thoughts on alternative media, mainstream media, as well, if you want to talk about publishing books like what Stairway does?
I mean, of course, there's always the risk of one of these independent platforms getting bought up by somebody. When I hear that Peter Thiel actually owned Rumble, I think that's true. That's always a possibility. But I just got done reading a wonderful book by Jacob Chama, his wonderful history on free speech. And every time that the licensing privilege was given up and the state no longer had to get license out to publishers, there was a huge proliferation of independent publishers. That's always happened. That's the direction I think we should take, no matter where it goes. I mean, if it's online or if it's on printing something at home, just keep on doing it. Just keep on pushing the information. That's basically my thought on it. I don't think just hoping for one platform to come along to serve all of our free speech needs, that thing's not going to come.
And how's if you want to tell us about Stairway Press, about your operation?
Yeah, Stairway Press is based over here in Arizona. We're a fairly small publishing house. Ken Kaufman does a wonderful job publishing independent researchers and journalists like myself. I'm not quite sure, actually, he'll be mad at me. I'm not quite sure how long he's been around here, but a number of years. He used to publish Ilana Mercer, who is no longer with him. It's a good publishing house. Very handsome paperbacks. I recommend everybody go check it out.
Yeah, I like. I bought a bunch of Stairway books that are on my to read list, and sort of getting back to the whole COVID Great Reset thing. I feel we're it hasn't gone away. Maybe a lot of pandemic measures for now have gone away, but you also touch on this in the book. You beg the question: how have people tolerated for almost 2 years this flicking of the reset button? And they seem to be flicking it on and off, masks off, masks on.
Yes.
Vaccine certificate is required. It isn't, it no longer is, it is again. And judging by social media, it does seem the narrative is somewhat crumbling for now, but in real life, it seems like the people I come across around me, they don't really seem to be talking about it anymore. Maybe that's also a sign that the people who bought into it don't want to talk about it, because maybe now they're wondering if they weren't duped? What's sort of your take on whether, on the status of people waking up and so forth?
Yeah, I have a T-shirt that says "Unvax Lives Matter." Now, that shirt used to get me a lot of looks. It used to give me a lot of thumbs up and sometimes some grins. But now I'm still in California once a month for family reasons. And now I wear the shirt over there and nobody blinks an eye at it. Nobody really seems to care. I think they have, even in California where the lockdowns came first and the vaccine mandates were pushed pretty hard. People are kind of embarrassed to say to come and criticize we who decided not to get vaccinated, especially when you have Pfizer's exec coming in telling the European Commission, hey, you know what, the vaccine never was tested even for its effect on transmissibility. So people think, oh, I can't possibly criticize this guy. I feel like an idiot. Of course it wasn't, especially considering how many people had COVID and then got over it and then were then blessed with natural immunity. So I do see people waking up to it. I mean, unlike I was on another podcast, and we're talking about how a lot of this started for a lot of people with 9/11. And in the aftermath of 9/11, there was an anti-war coalition, but by and large, a lot of people went along with the war. And my feeling was, as cruel as it will be, as cruel as it sounds, not everybody was affected by September 11th. That wasn't the same for the financial crisis. And it wasn't the same thing as with the COVID mandates. Those are felt much closer to people. So it kind of pissed them off. And with that, they were riled into a state of opposition in a way that I don't think they were in 9/11, after 9/11. So I do see people waking up to it now. I think it's a great thing. We need to continue to do that. I will say there's a part of me that feels kind of bad for one Anthony Fauci. Hear me out here. I mean, there were a lot of people who were pushing mandates, lockdowns. I think it was 19 out of the 25 Republican governors had done lockdowns. And poor Anthony Fauci, man, he's 80 years old and he's going to be the fall guy for all this. His ego is so massive. He won't be wounded by this. And of course he should go to jail, but so should a lot of other people. So he's going to be the scapegoat. And I said this a long time ago. I said, God, he's 80 years old now. He's going to retire. And the midterms are coming up. I don't have much faith in either of the two parties at all. I mean, I know I have friends out there. We're going to vote R all the way. And okay, great, do it. But I don't think, even if Republicans sweep the midterms, which I think they will, are they going to put Anthony Fauci in front of Congress? Maybe they won't, but I'm not hoping for it. I don't have much faith in Republicans. They've never shown to actually reduce the size of government or to hold corrupt politicians or corrupt bureaucrats, in Fauci's case, accountable. But he should. But I think he's probably going to escape and to some island and disappear into the sunset. And the rest of us, using our free speech privilege, or right, as I should say, we will criticize him and condemn him and write nasty history books about him, and that'll be the end of it. Sorry to come across as so cynical, but that's kind of my view. I mean, he's served the establishment so well for the last 40 years. Are they really going to throw him under the bus? Maybe, but I'm not hoping for it.
Yeah, I mean, myself as a conservative Christian, I would totally agree with you regarding the Republicans. I mean, also, like, if they, I don't really, it's a one-party system basically, and they both just want bigger governments, just work for corporate interests, and so I don't really see much changing. And they're all elites, so as you say, I don't think they would throw. There's small chance of them throwing Fauci or anyone else under the bus. It seems like they'll just sort of sweep things under the rug and move on. And just, I had another question. I'm always wondering about this. If you think they will bring back some of these biosecurity measures. I'm sort of on the fence now. I'm uncertain. On one hand, it seems like this whole 2 years of crazy biosecurity, medical tyranny, that it's in the past now, it feels like, and that they may not bring that back in that form, with all the masks and injections and temperature taking and gel and all of this. But one scenario I have is that they don't bring that back, but they're going to continue with this digital QR code system using different pretexts like the collapsing economy, food rationing, energy situation, or that they could whip out a whole new pandemic again and run us through this. What's sort of your take on a potential future like that?
Oh, I have no doubt in my mind there will be another pandemic here in the next few years. I think they've already tried that immediately afterwards, they did monkeypox, and just to kind of see where people were at. I mean, the lockdowns gave them a great opportunity to see where people were at, to see what they would do, what they would not do. It was obedience training, and the elites were able to get a real good lesson on that. Are they going to have another virus? Sure, next 5-10 years, maybe not right away. One interesting thing that Schwab talks about inside of his book is that, according to him, with the as population continues to grow, global population, which there's no evidence that it will. In fact, we're probably going to have a population collapse pretty soon because of the apocalyptic plummet of sperm counts. People just are not having babies. They can't have babies anymore. Sperm counts are just they're very, very low right now. In fact, Shauna Swan's book, she says that we probably should place ourselves on the endangered species list. I mean, they're so bad. I mean, you don't know anybody who doesn't have problems with it. Doesn't have to go to for infertility clinic. But according to Schwab, we continue to have this population growth. We're going to have to cultivate more land. Cultivating more land, according to him, will lead to more zoonotic diseases. We'll see more outbreaks because we have to have the food, and we'll have to kill species, and we'll have to move people around, move animals around, and that will lead to more diseases, according to him. That's one of the reasons why they're going along with this, to push a meatless diet. I'm not sure how you feel about meat, but it's also very high on their list of priorities. They want to move us into the world of Impossible Burgers. So yes, I do see something like that happening 5-10 years, and they'll know what to do better. They'll know what to do differently. Who's going to go along with it? Can we push more masks? I don't know. Especially if you consider the fact that a lot of kids around the world had grown up accustomed to this, had grown up with the lesson that this is what we need to do. Just like back in the day where they used to have drills for nuclear war, get underneath your table and so forth. Well, they do differently now. Now they do, well, this is how we stand 6 feet apart. We put our masks on. We go over here. There's all kinds of, all new drills. And that generation is going to grow up, at least some of them, thinking to themselves, this is just what we need to do. This is the new normal. The new normal isn't for people my age, people your age. It might be for people 5, 10, 15 years old. So yeah, 5 or 10 years for a new virus, maybe that's a little short-sighted, but 20 years, maybe. I do see it happening.
Yeah, I also don't disagree with that potential scenario. And if you say every 10 years, 2009, they ran the fake swine flu pandemic, and about a decade later, here we are, and probably, maybe they won't wait another decade to pull another one out. But something else that you talk about that I've also talked about on the podcast with, again, I have people who are libertarians, leftists, conservatives. CJ Hopkins, for me, I've interviewed him twice. He's out in Berlin. He's what I would call a rational leftist, and we've got a lot of these extreme, crazy, woke, ultra progressive, I don't know, what do you want to call them, that they
anti-white, let's just call it this. There's nobody, we don't call people woke in that they're woke to Schwab's agenda. They're woke in they don't see the enemy as Klaus Schwab or the Great Reset. They see the enemy as white supremacy. Everything is white supremacy, everything. So I call it what it is.
Yeah, and they're the people who double, triple mask. They'll take as many boosters as necessary. And as you said, you're a secular libertarian, and in your book you talk about you're happy to work with people like me, Christian conservative. And you did mention that it has largely been the right side of the aisle opposing medical tyranny. But again, there are a lot of problems with the right as well that you point out, where they uncritically support police or authorities, where they also, we can see bad things happening. I mean, in LA, I just read that there was one cop, a good cop, who was investigating other cops who apparently seems like they participated in a gang rape and murder. And during a bicycle exercise, that cop who was uncovering this corruption was killed by the guy who was accused of gang rape. I mean, that's insane. But anyways, just your thought on sort of this left-right, this ideology. It seems like that's less relevant, and it's more people who want liberty versus this globalism, this authoritarian globalism.
Yeah, well, of course, the gangs that exist within the Los Angeles Police Department, they go back decades. I probably don't have time to go into it all. But as far as my criticism of religion, it's also a criticism of faith. I see so many people on the right who were absolutely certain the police are going to be on our side, Republicans are going to be on our side, church leaders are going to be on our side. There were a lot of church leaders resisting and holding congregations and speaking out against it. To their credit, absolutely. There were also a lot of church leaders who were not, namely the Catholic Church. And there was an article, I cite an article inside my booklet in which I list out a number of church leaders who say, we're not going to give you vaccine exemptions. The problem is that I see we need to be a little bit more critical of those who we have faith in. If that's not police, if it's not church leaders, or politicians. And just to have people talk about blind faith. I don't think there's anything as blind faith. Faith is by itself blind, and that's hard to get past when you're always certain that this person's on your side. That's something we need to work to sort of come to a new understanding. I'm sorry, I lost your question. What was the question?
No, I mean, you're making good points. And again, and myself as a Christian, I've had on Pastor Arthur Pawlowski, who was arrested for refusing to shut down his church. I've talked to Henry Hildebrandt, another Canadian pastor who's also gotten into trouble. But yeah, I think we have to question all authority, because I think, again, from my perspective, man is sinful by nature. No one's perfect. And so these things ebb and flow. You've got good and bad people in every single institution. And I've seen churches, I've had friends that say, this church is only doing Zoom calls, or, they're not gathering in person. It's like, forget those churches. For me, that's not even like a real church. And so, you can go across the board, whether it's police or whichever institution. And just getting your thoughts. It's sort of nice to see how people, I think we should be able to talk to everyone, respect the person, and not be so divided is kind of my point. And I do see this coming together of people from different walks and different categories.
Right. Well, okay. Well, to go back to the partisanship, if you want, that's the right answer. But we talk about the woke left. I mean, by itself, I thought religion was irrational. No offense to you, sir. But if in comparison to what the left pushes today, the right is much more rational, to put it lightly. I mean, I'll use this as an example, as I often do. If you can convince the population that men can give birth, that men can menstruate, there's nothing you can't convince them of, right? I mean, it is an inverted world. You can tell them that the moon is made out of cheese. It's so insane right now. You can put a male rapist inside of a women's prison, and you'll now have modern feminists standing up for the male rapist. It's pretty bizarre. It's pretty weird. So, and these are the same people, of course, who push lockdowns. They're anti-police, except when they want the police to enforce lockdowns or vaccine mandates. Complete inversion, right? These are the kind of things that the left is pushing. It is craziness. It's crazy town. So I can, and if you consider the Democratic candidates, they're so embarrassingly bad, especially over Arizona. We have Mark Kelly, Katie Hobbs. I mean, these people they're a joke. They're a complete joke. So it's no wonder why the Republican candidates have such an appeal to them. And if you want to put your faith that they'll change things, or they'll, I mean, especially with someone like Carrie Lake, who has a very good record on opposing lockdowns and mandates, I'd vote for her. I wouldn't vote for Blake Masters.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of these people who seem to be like Trojan horses, and they go any which way the wind blows. Even, I've had a recent guest on. I haven't published a podcast yet. We talked about the Italian rights, Giorgia Meloni. I mean, and you just look at her. She's tied to like this Aspen Institute, and there's a video of her saying, "I support the digital green pass." When it was popular, and now that it's not popular, she'll say, "Oh, just kidding." And I'm like, "No, sorry." Just that doesn't fly with me. And just maybe to get your thoughts on fleeing California. I mean, I've even talked with liberal progressive, I would call it the sane, rational leftists who've told me, even for them, what you just described is just way insane, that a man is a woman and a woman is a man, and a child can change its gender and cut off mutilate its body parts and all this stuff. They're fleeing California to Mexico, and others are fleeing to Arizona or Texas or Florida. Maybe if you want to just talk about this exodus from California. I mean, does it really seem like it's being reported in the news that there's a huge amount of people leaving?
Well, it'd be hard to tell because there's so many people in California, a lot of people. It's a very congested state. But yes, I mean, I think the report here that I saw a few years ago was that the U-Haul company actually ran out of trucks leaving California, and that I think the CEO of the company confirmed that as being true. They also lost a seat in the House. That's more evidence. Yeah, I mean, and you see it over here in Arizona a lot. You'll just hear talk. You hear it on the radio, even at the gym, like, well, all these Californians are coming over here, and so on and so forth. It's always this always reminding us that Californians are coming over here. I'm a native born California. I've lived, born and raised there my whole life, and it's always been pretty bad, right? I don't know if I have time to go into all of this, but the lockdowns struck immediately in California. I mean, they were the first state, I think, to get aside from New York. And we also have the toughest vaccine mandates in the whole country. We have a truly sinister senator in that state, Senator Patten. He's a total monster, and he wants no exemptions whatsoever. And he's pushed it all. There is no exemptions. Any exemption now has to go through the state. If you don't want your child vaccinated, you have to get approval from Sacramento, and he wants it that way. And they just pushed a law here. Your listeners can Google this up. Gavin Newsom, another young global leader, attends Schwab summits. He just signed legislation prohibiting doctors, private practitioners, from going against the consensus, the medical consensus. If you're a doctor trying to advise his patients, say, for example, they have heart disease, and you don't want them to risk this mRNA vaccine, you can get fined. They will fine you. That's the kind of world that California is. It's really awful. Aside from all the taxes, the regulations, the traffic, the homelessness. God, and I hate to dump on the homeless because a lot of people are in really tough situations. And I don't mean to dump on it, but the homelessness is awful. It's the third highest rate of homelessness in the whole country. People often talk about it being earthquake country. It's not really earthquake country. Not really. It's fire country. It's fire country because the state, with all of its surpluses, refuses to clean out all the dry brush, and it gets very hot over there. And then you have homeless people camping out in the woods, and they light a match, and it starts these huge fires. Every single one of them, and they'll push it. They'll blame it then on global warming, which is nonsense. I mean, there's myriad problems in California. Vari, I can't go over all of them, but I hope I touch on some of them. It's and it's beautiful too. I mean, I love the landscape. I miss my beaches. I miss the mountains, but it's so awful otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to California, and it is beautiful and wonderful place. But you sort of just, in a nutshell, nailed a lot of the problems there. And maybe looking now towards solutions as plebes that we are, serfs. What do we do? How do we? I when I think about solutions, it's twofold. One is still fighting the good fight, no matter how dark it is, like this, Sparta 300, the movie 300 mentality. Even if I'm going to die, I'm going to fight to the death. But also, in case we do lose, I'm starting to think, okay, if we do lose, prepping, just kind of like preparing for life under this tyranny. So that's sort of my way. People think, I don't know, they call me blackpilled, but it's like, no, I fight the good fight as much as I can. If we lose the battle or the war, okay, well, I need a retreat to bug out to, to survive life under Nazi, to use that example, in the gulags or the Nazi regime. So what are your thoughts on some solutions?
We're teetering on the edge of nuclear war. We have children being mutilated and told they can change their sex. Inflation at an all-time high. The WEF pushing along with their Great Reset agenda. But hey, don't be so negative, right? Don't be so black-pilled. No, I reject the idea that being black-pilled is synonymous with nihilism, with giving up. I don't think so. I remember the movie The Matrix. I mean, the people aboard Morpheus's ship, the Nebuchadnezzar, was that what it was? They didn't look too happy. They looked pretty depressed, as a matter of fact. But even though they were awake, they were outside of the system. I don't think it's I mean, if you want to be a nihilist, if you want to give up, go ahead and do so. I can't do so. I don't want to lose on their terms. I'm a father. Me and my family put a great deal of work into my kid's upbringing. He's doing fantastic. I want the world to be a little bit better for him. I don't want the Klaus Schwabs of the world to rule over us, the human species. So I think being blackpilled just means just acknowledging how bad things are, quite frankly, and just having frank, honest conversations about it. I don't think we should lie to ourselves. I don't think we should have a false hope to go back to faith. I don't think we should have this. As far as solutions go, realizing it, acknowledging it, talking to other people. I mean, like-minded people. I mean, just going out and just talking to people actually is one of the most wonderful things you can do. You'll be surprised, at least not everybody, but maybe 1 in 5, if I were to say 2 in 5, will be very receptive to what you have to say. If you talk about, hey, Klaus Schwab is now hosting bioethicists who give the argument that we can genetically engineer mankind to be allergic to meat. Have you heard about this? It's alpha-gal. And they talk about ticks often induce alpha-gal syndrome. But this bioethicist, his name is Lau, I believe, he says we can do this with mosquitoes. We can actually make a mosquito that will bite someone and make them allergic to meat. That's pretty damn sinister. It's pretty evil, but it's real. Or you talk to them about the Russia-Ukraine situation. Well, here's Mr. Zelensky. He wants to correct the record, but to me, it sounded like he was advocating the West launch a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia. That's the way I heard it. And then you have all the spending. You have and then upset your Republican friends. Hey, how many Republican candidates and politicians either wanted more of this Ukrainian aid or promised to give more aid to Ukraine? Quite a few. There's things we can do. We can talk. There's also another aspect. During the lockdowns, there was an industry that started to boom, really, and that would be the farmers markets. There were a lot more farmers markets. That's another thing we could consider: supporting your local industry, supporting your local farming markets, and the protests. I mean, I'm trying to avoid the answer of just voting. I don't want to say that, but getting out there, talking to your neighbors, protesting, handing out my booklet, discussing your show. These are things we can do. I mean, it is almost an information war, and we need to get the information out. If anybody wants to go check out Henry Thoreau's wonderful essay, Civil Disobedience. Thoreau did not advocate voting. He said that we have to resist tax evasion, used to be a big thing, protesting. Just saying no, just refusing to go along. It's an idea. It's a few ideas.
Yeah, all good stuff, and even what you did, just leaving California for a much better jurisdiction, Arizona. That's another theme of mine here, where people are just relocating, and you don't have to go to another country. You can just get out of urban globalist, urban cosmopolitan globalist areas. I've talked about this with my guest, Greg Copley of the International Strategic Studies Association. The urban areas are the globalist areas, and you want to get out of those spaces and then find, because, also relocating that helps you find more like-minded people. I guess you'll find less like-minded people in places like California or New York, but once you get somewhere else, you can set up shop and start building parallel economies, societies, and that sort of thing. And I think you gave one of the best explanations of being blackpilled. I totally 100% agree with you said it better than me. This explanation of blackpill, all that means is seeing the reality, and that doesn't mean being a nihilist. And so, if you've got any other thoughts, for us related to the context of what we've been talking about.
I don't give up hope. I mean, just as I said, keep on the good fight. Anybody wants to check out my work? I am with Stairway Press. I've been publishing with them. You can Google up my name. I'm kind of all over the place on the internet. I'm also doing a podcast with Joe LaChant. It's called Truth is Scary. You should be able to find that on YouTube. Final thoughts. I mean, just don't give up quite yet. I mean, they haven't won. And the Great Awakening, is it going to be a Great Awakening? Is it going to be a mass of humanity? I'm not sure, but it might not require that many people. There's another discussion happening too, that is national divorce of secession. might not have time to go into all that right now, but I mean, it for me, secession doesn't mean completely escaping the U.S. It would be more of a reassertion of state sovereignty, just saying that even if the federal government, Biden administration or any other administration, wants to put World Health Organization troops somewhere in Arizona, our government over here in Arizona, our National Guard, would say no. That doesn't mean that we would give up all relations to other states or give up trade or travel. It would mean, no, you can't bring troops over here. We are a sovereign nation. That is an idea of a kind of a soft secession, as I think Jeff Deist talks about. I think all good things. I mean, keep talking, keep reading, keep communicating.
Yeah, I'll include all your links in the description, and hopefully we can continue this conversation on TNT radio. And what else was I going to say? That's my view is even if they win, I won't give up fighting. I like many of Bon Jovi's songs, and then the song "Blaze of Glory," which I think was in that soundtrack with Kiefer Sutherland, Emilio Estevez's Young Guns 2. That scene where Kiefer Sutherland's surrounded in his little cabin. He's going to die, but he just goes out, guns blazing. And I think that's the right attitude to have. Come hell or high water, fight the good fight with a smile on your face. Always be, with laughter. That's what the elites don't like. They're humorless, as my recent guest said. And thank you for being on Geopolitics and Empire, Kevin.
Hervoji, I really appreciate it. Great talking to you.
I hope you enjoyed this Geopolitics and Empire podcast. The website is geopoliticsandempire.com, and I encourage you to sign up for the free email list that goes out with each podcast and every weekend with a collection of news headlines. The newsletter and website are our last lines of defense. We're being censored and deplatformed. It's nearly impossible to find Geopolitics and Empire on the Google search engine. We've been blacklisted. YouTube frequently takes down our videos with strikes. Facebook restricts our page. Reddit and Twitter take down posts. And after the Associated Press mentioned Geopolitics and Empire in a 2021 article co-written with NATO, our Patreon account was terminated. Vimeo also terminated our Pro account. The best free way to help Geopolitics and Empire is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or elsewhere and subscribe to all of our media channels. You can find the video broadcast now on 5 platforms: Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, BitChute, and Brighteon. You can find the audio broadcast on the podcast ecosystem: SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify, and so on. My current favorite social media channels are Twitter and Telegram, but you can also find us on Gab, MeWe, Minds, Float, VK, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Finally, Geopolitics and Empire is in dire need of funding to continue. You can leave a donation, purchase a consultation with the host, or become a member to receive additional benefits. We also produce a weekly broadcast called Dissident Thinker for members and Rockfin subscribers only. We will continue to fight the good fight come hell or high water. Thank you for listening.